Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to tell you about how to read a file using the Byte-stream class, which I discussed in my previous video. That is, the class name is FileInputStream. Okay, so I'm going to initialize the FileInputStream with a particular path of the file which I want to read. Okay, and then I'm going to use a read method, fp.read. This is fp object. I'm going to read that. I'm going to use the read method. This read method will actually transfer 1 byte at a time into this variable. Remember that read method, even though it reads 1 byte at a time, right, but it always gives back to you an integer value, an int value. That's why I have declared C as an int. Okay, so remember this fact. Read will give you an int value which you have to store in a particular variable, and you have to check if the value is equal to -1. Okay, then break out of the loop, means stop reading. The -1 value is returned, which signifies the end of the file. So read method returns -1 whenever the end of the file is reached. So that's what I'm checking here. I'm breaking the loop. Okay, otherwise you can see that an integer value is going to be given here in C. So I cannot directly print this C here. If I try to print C, the numbers will be printed. I want to print the character form of that number, right? For example, a 65 number will be returned back to me by the read method, and I want to not print 65, but I want to actually print the capital A corresponding to it. So that's why I'm typecasting it to explicit typecasting it to character, and hence the character A will be printed instead of 65. Okay, and you can see that all this code has to be inside the try block because I'm dealing with the outside world. My program is dealing with the outside world. So this is what I taught you in the exception handling topic. And if you try to read or write the file, the compiler forces you to write that particular thing inside the try block. Otherwise, this particular line is going to be a compiler. Okay, and then you have a catch block, and then you have a finally block also. Okay, let me give you a live demonstration, because you will commit many mistakes, or you will be having many queries. Why I have written this particular thing here, why I have written this, why I have written this thing here, right? So let me give you a live demonstration. Before reading a file, you need to have one file present at the background which you want to read. So let me create a file at the background. Let me check if the file is there at the background or not. Okay, let's say in the file handling directory I have a file called demo, and let's see what are the contents inside it. This is a demo file and is just being used for demonstration purpose. So I'll be reading this particular thing into my Java program onto the console screen. Okay, this is what I want to read. So fine, let's go to the program first. Let's make file input stream fp is equal to new file input stream. Okay, you have to give a path here. So let's take the path from here, properties. Okay, so this is the path. I'm copying this path, copy, and the name of the file is demo.txt. I have to append it myself, so I'm pasting it here. Okay, remember the forward slashes are going to be used, as I explained you previously as well. Forward slashes or double backward slashes you could use, slash demo.txt, name of the extension. Okay, but first thing I have to import this also. Import java.io.star. Okay, so it's going to give you an error here. At this particular point, the compiler says that, hey, you are making an object which deals with the outer world, so the chances of getting errors, runtime errors, are more likely. So put it inside the try block. I force you to do so. Okay, so that's why it is giving you an error here. So what I make is try catch block. Try. Okay, and the corresponding catch block. IO exception, or it could be actually the particular error it could throw is file not found exception. As you can see here, it throws file not found exception, right? But I could use the parent class also, IO exception, right? IO exception E. Okay, then if exception occurs, then I would try to print it here, println system.out.println error. Okay, error occurred during reading of file. Okay, this message should be printed. Right. Now let's try to read the bits one at a time inside the variable C. Okay, and you can see I'm taking a variable, and because it is going to give me one byte at a time, the read method is going to give me 1 byte at a time, so I definitely need a while loop while C does not equal to -1. Okay, while the value of C does not equal to -1 means while I do not get -1, which is the end of the file, keep on reading the contents using the this particular line called C is equal to ft.read. Okay, so I'm reading the contents inside C, right? And then what I'm saying is println, not println, but just print, because I want to print everything in the same line, character by character, C. But this will just print a number. I want the character format for that. Okay, whatever number you fetch, okay, give me the character representation of that. Okay, because you can see the read method gives me the int. This is the int I'm talking about, so I have to convert it into char just to be sure. But let's see the errors here. Compile errors. C, it's saying that okay, the C which you are comparing might not have been initialized, so what I'm comparing it with, so that's why I gave 0 in my slide, right? Previously he initialized it to at least the 0 first, or any value first. Okay, then keep on reading the contents inside the C variable and keep on outputting the value like this. Okay, let's try to run this program, and some interesting thing is going to happen when I run this program. That is, okay, those are the contents, fine, but what is this question mark? It wasn't there in the file, and what is this question mark at the end, right? So I tell you what it is. When you reach, let's say you are probably standing at this point, full stop, you have read everything and using the read function, and you are writing it also onto the console. Assume that inside the file now you reach the full stop. Okay, this read method will read the full stop and put it inside C, and that full stop is going to be printed. Okay, then you again go back to the loop here. You check that was -1 returned. No, -1 was not returned, so it is again going to read. Okay, it is again going to read the next character, but the next character is not there, nothing is there, right, into the file. This read method will return end of file. E of end of file means -1, so -1 is going to be stored inside C, and that -1 character representation is being printed here. Okay, this is a sort of a flaw, you can say, in my logic. So what I do is, if I surround it with the if condition, that's why you might have seen why I have written here if condition also. If C not equals -1, okay, only then print this particular thing. Let's see, have I corrected my logic or not? Yeah, I've corrected my logic. So if -1 is going to be returned, is not going to be returned, only then print the corrected version of that. Okay. But one point is that as a good programmer, the streams which you have opened, for example this stream which you have opened to read a file, has to be closed as well. Means you have to release the resource as a good programmer, so that this could be used by some another thread if it wants. Okay, that resource is actually the file, right? So always close it using the method called close. Okay, you're done with the file, so you just close it. Otherwise it'll be reserved for all of the time until your program or your application is finished. So as a good programmer, when you're done with the resource, just close the stream. So this is it. So but wait a minute, this I can point out this is a flaw here. What if I'm reading a file and suddenly due to some reason my program crashes here? Could be any reason. My program crashes in the while due to any reason you can think of, and at that point this you will directly go to the catch block from, let's say, from this point. From this point you will directly go to the catch block if some error happens during the reading, and definitely you see that this instruction is not going to execute. Means if an error occurs while you are reading, your resource will never be closed, and definitely your exception is handled, but the resource was never closed. So that's why we used a finally block. In the finally block we use this line of code to release the resource. Okay, so there I'm using it. So let's add the finally block here. Finally, and cut this line of code and paste it here. Okay, but wait a second, it started giving an error here. FP is local to the scope. FPs cannot be resolved. So you see that you created a FP inside this try block, and when the try block is finished executing, it doesn't know what is FP here. Okay, so that's why I put this outside the try block. Reference variable you can always put outside the try block. Okay, so that this reference variable is visible to everyone. Okay, but the object which you have to make, that has to be inside the try block. Reference variable can also be can be outside the try block, no problem in that. Exception, runtime exception occurs at the object, not at the reference variable. Okay, but wait a minute, now there is one more error here. Okay, so these kind of errors I wanted to show you step by step how it occurs. Now what does it say? Unhandled exception, IO exception. Okay, it says that FP is an object of FileInputStream. Means you're dealing with the outer environment and you're executing a method using that object, and there could be runtime error while closing the file also. What if I do not, if I'm unable to close the file, then runtime error would occur, and hence my program will crash at this point. So you have to handle this particular thing. If my program crashes here, you have to provide the exception handling for this. So either you write the try block here, try block again here to handle this particular code, try, okay, and catch with the IO exception again, E. Okay, you can just type the message system.out.println unable to close the file. Okay, this message will be generated if you are unable to close the file. Okay, now one more error came up. FP might not have been initialized. Means it is saying that, okay, what happens, okay, you're trying to close the file, but the FP might not have been initialized. What if my program crashes before assigning a value to it? Then FP would be having nothing with it, and what you are trying to close. So Java is confirming, at least give some value, right? So FP might not have been initialized. So I'm just giving here null. That's why you see in my slide I have written this line outside with a null value, so that at least it has a null value. And there is one more flaw here, programming flaw. Okay, if I'm unable to initialize, this FP will remain null,
and if I try to close the resource which was never opened, the finally block because will ever always execute. And if I try this, when this line executes, then it will be equivalent to null.close, which will again crash. Okay, in order to avoid that, I just write a logic here. If fp not equals null, only then close the resource, otherwise my program is going to crash, right? Just because of my programming logic mistake, right? So that's why you might have seen I have written, I have written in my slide all this line of code in the finally, like if fp not equal to null, fp dot close. But you can see that I have not used try and catch here. Instead, I'm using the throws keyword here, throws keyword. So in the main, if you're not handling any exception, you write at the header of the method throws IO exception. I'm not dealing with that exception. So this is a bad programming practice which you will see in most of the books or websites wherever you're reading from. And I told you that they have written it because I believe they just want to reduce the code just for the demonstration purpose, right? So I can also reduce my code just for the demonstration purpose. I can just write, okay, fp.close. It says that, okay, you're not handling the exception, so either surround it by try and catch block or write at the header of the method throws. So header of the method is, this is the method, throws IO exception. Throws, not throw, throws. Okay, see the error is gone. Okay, and what kind of error it could generate? It is again IO, it is IO exception. So I have to write IO exception, not file found exception, file not found exception. Okay, so this is the demonstration why I wrote all this code uh, inside my slide, step by step. Why I have written this reference variable outside, why I have initialized c is equal to 0, and so on. So everything has been explained now. So you execute it yourself and try to find out if you're able to execute it yourself or not. Okay, that's it.